Okay, all members are present. No announcements. We need to make a motion to amend the agenda so that we will have the first public session, comment session, to be after Mr. Hicks's comments. So some of the questions may be answered after his presentation. I need a motion. So moved. Second? Second. Okay, all those in favor? So moved. Before you are the minutes from the Board of Ed meeting on an executive session on March 16th, as well as the budget study session and executive session on March 30th. A motion to approve? So, all those in favor? Okay. I will turn it over to Mr. Hicks.
Thank you. We're going to begin tonight by recognizing our Erie County Championship mock trial team. And I'm going to introduce Sharon Weber, who is an assistant principal at the high school, so she can talk to us about the advisors and the students.
Thank you, Dr. Hicks. Mrs. Kloss, board members, good evening. It is my privilege this evening to present to you the mock trial team of Clarence High School. We are extremely proud of them and their great record, their 4-year run here that we've had. I would like to introduce Mr. Ronald DiNicolantonio, their advisor and coach.
Thank you, Mrs. Weber. Thank you. This is a very special evening tonight. I'd like to introduce our attorney advisor, Justin Kloss. If you could come forward, please. What makes Mr. Kloss a special person is that he was a former student of mine in class. He was in my law class with me. He was part of our mock trial team, and he went to the state finals and went on to college at U of Pitt, went to the University of Buffalo, became an attorney, and is now back for the past 3 years as one of our attorney advisors. So I'm very proud to have him. If we give him a nice hand for all this time. With that, I'm going to have Mr. Kloss talk a little bit about the accomplishments of the team.
Thank you, Ron. What Ron fails to mention is that Ron is there the most out of all the advisors. He's there, during the school day, helping the kids, during study halls. He's the first advisor there after work, and we really could not have had as of successful a run without Ron's help. So I just want to give Ron a round of applause. And I know I speak for Colleen, our other attorney advisor, when I say that the accomplishments of these students is the result of their hard work. From the beginning of December until now, they put in between 10 to 15 hours a week, sometimes more, one-on-one with the attorney advisors, with Ron, and with each other. So they do this while juggling academics, and some of our students are also on sports teams. So it's a busy time of the year for them, so that's even more challenging for them. But hard work, their dedication has really paid off, and will continue to pay off. We're going to be competing this Saturday at the regional tournament at the district court downtown, so wish them luck. One thing I would like to note before we announce the students is that we really could not have done this without the support of the families and the community itself. And one of the stories that I told, I forget who I was speaking to, but at the county finals, in the back of the courtroom, there are 8 benches. And usually it's filled half and half with family members from Clarence and family members from the other school, in this case Orchard Park. Out of the 8 rows, Clarence filled 7 of them. And it wasn't just the parents of the students who were competing that day. It was the parents of the understudies, the new people who were still learning. And it was their grandparents, it was their aunts. And it was really special because you could see the community get behind the team. And to have that support is tremendous. So I want to thank the families of the students who get them to practice almost every day this week, and drive them to the competition and so on. And thank you for that. So I'll turn it over to Ron.
At this time, we'll announce the students. Students, if you'd come forward once I call your name, please. Ethan Alexon. Just stand up in the front. Derek Andrews. Tyler Bird. Oh, congratulations, Tyler. Sorry about it. Julia Carey. Georgia Halbert. Adam Clavoon. Rebecca Knapp. Alexander McElhaney. Ryan Mazurkowitz. Mary Owen. Our team captain, Mitchell Snyder. Sean Stenardi. I just want to say thanks again, team, for making Clarence High School and Clarence Central School District very proud. Thank you.
Congratulations, mock trial team. We'll just pause here briefly. If you have homework or anything that you need to do, you guys can, or if you want to stick around for the budget presentation, that's all good too. You're going to stay. Awesome, Mitch. Way to give it the college try. Okay. This is our fourth budget study session, and I'm going to present everything that we know so far about the New York State budget and the recommended budget to the Board of Education from the administration in this particular draft. We're going to take this particular budget study session and divide it into three parts. First, last time we met on March 30th, we knew that there was a budget deal with the state, but we didn't know many of the details about that particular deal. They have trickled out over the past week or so, and we're going to give you a synopsis of some of the things that were in the budget deal. Some of them are non-monetary items, but they have a large impact on the education in Clarence, so it's worthy of going through them and making sure that the board and our community understands. When we're finished with that brief summary of the New York State budget process, we're going to review the updated proposed Clarence budget, the budget that we are recommending to the Board of Education. And we were beneficial in terms of receiving more state aid than we thought we were going to receive in any of the drafts of the budget so far. So we have a recommendation about what to do with those excess funds. Then we'd like to open it up to the community. This is one of the last times that there's a question and answer session on the budget. The Board of Education will meet in a session next Monday night on the 20th. We'll probably hold that meeting in the lecture hall. And that is the official time that the board will adopt the budget. So this is one of the last chances for the community to express your opinion one way or another. The only thing we'd ask is please come up and use the microphone, state your name, and then any questions that you may have of me or the Board of Education as we move forward. Okay, the state budget summary very quickly. All totaled, there was a $1.3 billion increase in state school aid. That was higher than the governor originally had proposed, less than what the legislature wanted, but it was a good, happy medium. As always, school districts received the lion's share of the increase in the state budget, and I'll just publicly go on record and thank Jane Corwin and Mike Radzenhofer for their efforts at helping get this type of school aid increase, not just to Clarence, but to all schools in New York State. That out of that $1.3 billion, $423 million was in foundation aid. Foundation aid is based on formulas, and the formulas send money to school districts based on the wealth factor of your school district. There was $603 million in gap elimination adjustment restoration. It is not totally gone yet, but it is significantly reduced. And then there's about $300 million in what's called expense-driven aids. Every year we spend money at BOCES, we spend money on transportation, we spend money on special education. The money we spent last year gets aided in this particular year's budget. The foundation aid increase across New York State of $428 million, the minimum amount a school district would receive was 0.3%. The maximum amount a school district would receive was a 15% increase. Clarence received the minimal amount in foundation aid increase. We received just under $50,000 in foundation aid. If we ran the numbers the way we're supposed to, we would get much more. Foundation aid usually benefits low wealth districts and urban districts. They got the lion's share of the $428 million. The GEA restoration ranged from a minimum restoration of 30% to a maximum restoration of 98% of the GEA monies that were outstanding. In Clarence, we had 36% of the GEA restored. We still have $1.8 million in GEA funds outstanding. You can think of that as an IOU from the state to the school district. Other funding in this budget, there was $340 million for universal pre-K. New York City got the lion's share. A small amount goes to the rest of the state. Clarence receives about $250,000 in universal pre-K. We contract with 3 or 4 providers that service a little over 90 kids. There was $75 million for persistently failing schools in New York State to go through improvement planning. We are not one of those. There were $14 million for teacher centers and $2 million for Governor Cuomo's master teacher program to pay additional stipends to highly effective teachers. Some other things that happened in the New York State budget other than just the monetary issues. One big change was tenure. Tenure is a set of job protections that guarantees due process after you've served a probationary period at a school district. It used to be 3 years. The probationary period is now extended to 4 years in order for teachers or administrators to receive tenure. If you're already in the pipeline, it's 3 years. If you start your timeline this July 1st or later, it goes to 4 years. In order to receive tenure, the teacher or principal must achieve a highly effective or effective rating in 3 out of the 4 years. And if that teacher or principal had an ineffective rating in their final year of probation, they could not receive tenure. So these are pretty serious changes to the tenure law. Teacher evaluations is another thing that was heavily debated in the state budget and has what I think are some pretty significant changes. First, the state education department is required to establish a new system and adopt those regulations by June 30th, 2015. Now, if you deal with the state education department on a regular basis like we do, we find it hard to believe that the state education department can accomplish anything by June 30th, 2015. But they're going to have to rewrite an entire teacher evaluation process by then and let us know what the regulations are. Instead of multiple categories of a teacher evaluation and principal evaluation process, there will be 2 categories moving forward. One category is student performance on tests, and the other category is observations that are conducted either by building administrators or by administrators outside the building. The new matrix that you see will categorize teachers and principals into one of 4 slots: highly effective, effective, developing, or ineffective. You take your score for student performance or tests, you take your score for observations, kind of draw a line on the matrix, and you end up with a final overall score. This is brand new. It used to be based on a 100-point scale. It is no longer based on a 100-point scale. Some of this is going to have to get worked out over the summer, and then we're going to have conversations with our Teachers and Principals Association about it. This is a rather dramatic change. Just some quick things on how the evaluation system is new and different. In the new system, it's based on student performance and classroom observations. In the old system, our teachers also had a portfolio of work that we thought was a rather authentic way to make evaluations of teachers. That will no longer be, or will any other evidence be available. Districts can give a second state-approved test to measure student performance in addition to the state tests that are given in grades 3 to 8 and the Regents exams that are given at high school. We used to have local assessments that would be used in the teacher evaluation system. They will no longer be used. Classroom observations are conducted by the principal, and in the new law, an independent evaluator. An independent evaluator can mean a principal or administrator from a different building, someone from the central office, or Clarence could go and, let's say, contract with Williamsville to have their principals come here and ours go there. It's more likely that we'll have a system where people from other buildings go and observe teachers in different buildings. School districts and unions only have to negotiate some of the details of this new system. In the old system, 80% of the teacher evaluation system was subject to collective bargaining. The matrix ensures that teachers who are rated ineffective on state tests in the new system can only score as high as developing. In the old system, even if one thing was ineffective, you could still achieve an overall rating of effective based on the other elements. So these are some drastic changes to the evaluation system. We're going to learn more about them when the state puts forward regulations, and we're going to be in the process next fall of speaking with our associations. Very quickly, there was also some changes in dismissing teachers. The law in New York State, which requires due process in order to dismiss teachers and principals, is called 3020A. If a teacher now is convicted of a violent, or a principal is convicted of a violent felony against a child, they will now have their certification revoked automatically. If a teacher or a principal had 2 consecutive ineffective ratings, that is used as evidence of incompetence at a 3020A hearing. A district must bring charges against a teacher or principal if they have 3 consecutive ineffective ratings. And educators who are charged with sexual misconduct against a student are suspended without pay for the duration of the hearing. It used to be with pay for the duration of the hearing. So these are, again, some pretty drastic changes. Last one won't affect Clarence, but schools that are in the lowest 5% performing across the state, that's approximately 178 schools across the state, will be designated as failing, and if they've been failing for at least 10 years, they're considered persistently failing. Those schools get 1 to 2 years to improve. If they don't improve, the state sends in a receiver. They send in a third party who will take over the school district. The Board of Education will be disbanded and let go in that particular instance. So that's a quick synopsis of the budget reforms. One key element here for the Board of Education to keep in mind when we're talking about some of the things that we would like to recommend to you in this budget. School districts have to accept and adopt the new reforms, the pieces that are negotiable, by November, or we will not get the full increase in state aid. We will only get the expense-driven aid increase. For us, that's a little bit over $200,000. It's the difference between a little bit over $200,000 if we can't come to an agreement with the teachers and principals, or $1.1 million if we can come to an agreement with the teachers and principals. I have every faith in both of our associations, who we have good relationships with, that we'll be able to negotiate whatever's necessary by November. But it's worth noting that that is in the law. We have to make these changes in order to get the full aid. Okay? So that's a quick synopsis of the state budget. Now, an update to where we've been from January to now for the Clarence budget. Some additional things that we are making here as assumptions as we create this budget, now that we know the exact amount of state aid that will be available. Number one, we will create the tax levy below the level of the tax cap rather than at the level of the tax cap. We have clarity on our state aid allocation. When we first started the budget process in January and February, we had a very low estimate of $250,000 of additional state aid. We thought that was the bare minimum that would actually flow to the school district. We changed that estimate to $800,000 on March 30th. The actual state aid increase that came in for the Clarence School District was a little bit over $1 million. So that allows us to do some things that we hadn't originally been planning on or that we have not stated to the community yet. We're going to recommend to the board, this is the central office administration, we're going to recommend using the additional state aid funds, number one, lower the tax levy from the cap level of 4.7%. And again, the cap is established by New York State. It's based on 3 factors. Clarence does not have a say in what the cap number is. The cap number essentially takes the cost of living plus those things that are exempt from the levy and puts it out there. So the normal cap number would be 4.7% levy increase for Clarence. We're recommending that goes to 3.9, and we're recommending that 11 positions that have been reduced over the past 4 years get restored, teaching positions. So, the revised revenue estimates. We've put this out 3 or 4 different times. Every time we've put it out, it's had a different number for the second to last row of state aid, including BOCES and Medicare. 1.1, a little bit over 1.1 million is what we were talking about. So we're proposing a budget and recommending a budget to the Board of Education that would have a 3.8% spending increase year over year. It would be a $2.8 million increase budget to budget, and we estimate the tax rate to be $15.37. It could very likely be lower than that, but we don't believe it would in any case be higher than that. It's almost always lower. Depends on the total assessed value of Clarence and the other towns that make up the school district. One of the things that we did was took a look at the criteria that we have for adding a position back. When we were going through difficult years in the budget and we were making recommendations about reducing positions, we used a similar set of criteria to make decisions about what positions should be reduced. We used these criteria for making decisions about what we're going to recommend be put back into the budget. The first and most important is, what's the degree of impact on students and on the core programs of the district? Secondly, what are the specific number of kids that are going to be impacted by a decision to bring a particular position back? What's the impact on fulfilling the mandates of the New York State reform agenda, which includes the Common Core? What about future budgets? We don't want to recommend to the board putting back a position or a program and then cutting it in the near future. We're giving a 5-year projection at the end of this particular budget session, and we don't believe that any of these positions that we're recommending to be put back with normal state aid over the course of the next 5 years would have to be reduced. We also took a look at the impact of enriching or enhancing educational opportunities for kids. Some of the things that were cut over the past 4 years had a seriously detrimental effect on enriching or enhancing educational experiences. And we took a look at future enrollment projections as well. So we took a look at things like what kinds of courses were kids signing up for in the high school, where were the enrollment projections for the elementaries and the middle school, what's the degree of impact on students and on core programs. So in no particular hierarchical order, here are the positions that we're recommending to put back with a brief and short rationale. First, we have, through our special education process, identified additional special education students. We are going to have to add another special education student, or I'm sorry, another another special education teacher. Teacher would be shared between Clarence Center and Ledgeview, and we absolutely need it in order to service the IEP mandates that are determined by our Committee on Special Education. So if there was a hierarchy, to any of the positions on here. The special ed teacher is one that absolutely has to come back into the budget. We're recommending 2 English language arts teachers, one at the middle school and one at the high school. Right now, during the school day, we don't have enough time to provide enough intervention for students who are not meeting the standards on the state tests. The state test cut scores have changed. The number of students who are not meeting the standard, which is a level 3 or level 4 on the state test, has increased dramatically. We need to be able to give those students help and support during the school day. We're in dramatic need of additional staff to do that at the middle school and the high school. So we're recommending 2 math and 2 English teachers in order to meet that particular demand. One of our buildings at the elementary level is gaining population, and the number of kindergartners coming in is higher than the number of 5th graders going out. That's not true in the other 3 buildings, but at Harris Hill, that is true. And at this point, with the existing staff allocation to Harris Hill, there are a couple bubbles of 26 to 27 class size. If we bring a teacher back at Harris Hill, we'll be able to significantly reduce that class size. At the high school, we're recommending reinstatement of a technology ed teacher and a business education teacher. Those are courses that are highly sought after by students. In the past 3 years, since we've had the cuts, we have had to negatively impact someplace in the neighborhood of 130 to 150 kids per year who can't get the courses they want in these 2 particular areas due to the fact that we don't have enough teachers to teach those particular courses. We have a commitment to the Project Lead the Way program. Our tech ed teachers, when we held our budgets, or when we held our regular board meeting at the middle school, talked about all the great things that we're doing in Project Lead the Way and Gateway to Technology at the middle level. We think we easily can fill these 5 sections of additional classes for kids. Business education, we have a commitment to the Finance Academy. We have our first graduating class in the Finance Academy this year. We have to turn away dozens of kids if we don't add a teacher to that particular position. We're also recommending a music teacher to be restored, and that would reduce lesson group sizes, which have become very large and inflexible and intractable since we've made the cuts in the music department. Of all of the departments across the district, the one department that suffered the most reductions was music. We think this is a good time to bring a music teacher back, and it would help all 3 levels. And then finally, we don't think it's plausible to have an elementary school without a full-time librarian, someone who can provide literacy instruction to our kids and do the kinds of enrichment activities that normally would have been done by some of the CSWEP teachers that we had in the past. If we bring back 2 librarians, we will have 1 full-time librarian in each one of our elementary schools, which is the standard really across New York State. So we are recommending these 11 positions. So what would the impact be if these 11 positions were restored to the budget? This is a slide that hasn't changed because in order to raise the levy to pay for all of these particular positions, a $100,000 home would have an annual property tax increase of $57 or $4.73 per month. A $200,000 home would have a $114 property tax increase or a little under $10 a month. And a $300,000 home would have a $170 property tax increase or a little over $14 per month. One thing worth noting, all homeowners in Clarence will receive a rebate on the increase in their taxes for 2015-16, just like you did last year for this particular school year of 2014-15, because Clarence has met all of the obligations for the tax rebate program established by the governor 2 years ago. Now, you don't continue to get that rebate ad infinitum, but for next year, it would absolutely happen. So we think that's a net zero next year increase in taxes. In the future, it would be that much more on those particular homes. So a summary of where our budget is and where we stand. This year, our budget total was $72.5 million. The tax levy at 3.9% will yield for us $1.6 million. State aid and other revenue yields $1.1 million. Our total for 2015-16, $75.3 million. That's a budget-to-budget increase of 3.8%, a levy increase of 3.9%, actually is zero in total dollars for 2015-16. Plus, we still have the proposition to add 13 buses in a separate voting item on the date of the public vote. We always do this in the last couple of meetings because the board desires to see how are we 5 years out, do we have sustainability in the fiscal arena of the school district? Well, we think we do with some valid conservative assumptions. You can see this year is 2014-15. You can see 5 years out compared to this year. On the expense side, which is the important side of the budget, we anticipate wages to rise from 2 to 3% annually. Our projected enrollment declines in retirements, which is 4 to 5 retirements per year. Anything higher than that usually yields us additional funds that were unexpected. That's built into these particular scenarios. The benefits are built in. The retirement system benefit actually went down this year in terms of total cost. Our health care benefit is rising less than any other health care because we're self-insured. We project a 5% increase. This year, I think we were at 4.5%. All other areas, utilities, supplies, equipment, debt increase 1% annually. You can see on the expense side, we would go from $75.3 million to 2019-20 at $83.4 million. These are conservative estimates. We feel like we can be with them. The only thing that has to happen on the revenue side, number one, we anticipate sales tax to increase slightly. Clarence gets a portion of Erie County sales tax. It rose a little bit higher than that this year, but over the last 5 or 6 years, this has been a good average, a good conservative average. For local revenues, we anticipate those things to remain flat. Some business, commercial properties they pay a payment in lieu of taxes rather than something on the tax base. We don't anticipate that to be any more than $750,000 every year. Our fund balance that we add every year in order to balance the budget from our cash reserves, this year is at $1.85 million. We are anticipating that to be the same for the next 5 years. That's a very conservative estimate. And as long as we can get a tax levy in the range of 3.5%, anywhere from 3 to 4%, that's where we've been every year, the cap, and we get 2% in state aid. And this year we got a little over 7% in state aid. As long as we get 3.5% on the levy, 2% on state aid, we're fine in the next 5 years. We can sustain the 11 positions. We can sustain the budget. We don't have to ask the community to exceed the cap. We don't plan on asking the community to exceed the cap. So, Ms. Kloss, that's our recommendation to the Board of Ed.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we're going to ask each of the board members to make some comments, ask any other further questions you may have, so that this is the last time we're going to be meeting to discuss the budget before the time dictated necessity to vote at the next board meeting, which is next Monday. Matt, would you like to start first? Okay.
Always on the end. Before we get into some of the budget questions directly, I wanted to ask a question on the tenure rules as you understand them. So you talked about the tenure time changing. Does that apply to reinstated positions, or is it only brand new teachers? Is it?
The question was about tenure and when the 4-year timeline kicks in. We think, in our reading of the law, that you have to start your timeline as of July 1st this year. If you started your timeline prior to July 1st of this year, you would have a 3-year timeline. If you start your timeline after July 1st of this year, you'd have a 4-year timeline.
Okay, thank you. I'm actually very supportive of the additional positions being brought on. I did hear some questions, and I thought it might be an opportunity to ask about it. There were some concerns about the social worker position in the past and kind of where that is and kind of what we've done in regards to that.
And hierarchically, we have reduced about 67 teaching positions in the past 5 years. So 11 teachers reinstated into the budget would be about a 6% certainly we think there's value in social workers. We did have a presentation by Mary Ellen Conley, who is our Director of Special Education, talking about how we have used psychologists in lieu of social workers. Last year, when one of our speech teachers retired, we did not hire a speech teacher. Instead, we hired a we now have 6 district-wide. I think they're doing a great job of taking care of the social emotional needs of kids. And that's one reason why, the limited number that we had, we didn't have social workers.
I don't think I have any additional questions at this time. Basically, I'm happy with the increase in positions.
Well, my comments, questions, I thought, some things came to mind from an unfortunate incident this past week. My aunt passed away. She was a special education teacher for 43 years. And I have a lot of educators in my family. My mother taught in the Buffalo Public Schools. My uncle's a retired superintendent. I have cousins who are teachers. My sister's a principal. And talking to them, it seems in different parts of the country, they all seem to utilize technology more than we are in the Clarence district. So one thought that I had, one desire that I had would be, we can't bring back enough teachers to bring back all of the opportunities for our students. So my thought was to go with the previous recommendation to bring back 8 teaching positions and use the balance of those funds to implement technology and some online programs to enhance opportunities for our students. Some of the courses are not offered because we don't have enough students who enroll in the courses to make it viable to teach the class. There may be opportunities through distance learning, like my cousin uses in Maryland and my sister uses in Las Vegas, to provide opportunities for our students and to have a multiplier effect on that amount of funds that are in the budget. Now, I'm not suggesting that we replace all of our teachers with computer screens, but there may be some opportunities, and I would advocate for using some of the funds that we weren't expecting in our previous budget session to explore the use of online technologies to enhance opportunities for our students. I don't have specific answers for that at this point, but I think it's a way that we may be able to generate a multiplier effect on those dollars. We are going to be putting in $3.5 million into technology in our capital projects, so our computer infrastructure is going to be on the leading edge, and I think some of the instructional technology we may be able to get up to the leading edge and offer a more customized curriculum for some of our students who have more specific interests that aren't as general to the whole student body. So that's just some things that I've been thinking about, something that I think that we should explore as a board, especially where we're improving our technology backbone as a way to provide more opportunities for our students and have that multiplier effect on the budget dollars.
I wanted to ask about that because, I mean, my concern is that I heard that all the positions that are up on the list right here are high demand, and so I mean I don't disagree that there are opportunities for distance learning, but that would be a situation where you've only got 1 or 2 students. If we've got enough students locally to fill the business education, the tech education, and quite frankly, the rest of these I don't really see as something that would make sense from a distance learning perspective. I wouldn't want to conflate the distance learning element with this particular budget proposal, personally. I mean, that's kind of my thinking on that specific piece.
My thinking is we may be able to help more students than we could help with the positions that we have listed there. mean, I don't know that, but it's something that I think is worth exploring. We may be able to fill those sections, but there's still, because there still may be students that are waiting to get into those classes. We may be able to service all of those students by introducing some technology into it and some of the instructional technology that's out there. So that's my thought. We may be able to help more of the students. We may be able to fill all of those, but there could be still be students waiting.
Just so you know, Jason, before you were on the board, this board did explore the distance learning, and it's a very valid point, and maybe it should be addressed again at some point. There were several reasons that it wouldn't work at that particular time. So I think maybe it could be, you know, maybe a part of a summer workshop or next year's winter workshop to go into those particular reasons. I don't think it's the time or the place to get into those specific reasons, but it's, you know, it's a different world technologically, so maybe something would be valid at this point. But just so everyone knows, we have in the past looked at distance learning, and it's probably worth looking at again. I'm in support of Dr. Hicks's recommendations for the 11 positions to be filled, and I'm in support of this budget. I have no further questions.
I guess let me start off by saying I'm happy to be looking at a restoration list versus what I had to face the first year in this chair. And to see 9 to 10 of these 11 positions were on the final cut list of 19 back then, it's good to see. And that being said, I appreciate the priority placed on these positions versus other, but I had a few questions. First off, as we've toured some of the elementary buildings this year, we've seen or heard about some of the K-3 classes and the class sizes really exceeding levels that we would prefer to have. I think some kindergarten classes were as high as 28. Recognizing we can't predict everything going forward, where do we project with the One Harris Hill change? Are we going to have comparable numbers next year with the other buildings?
Our projection is that there might still be one bubble in K through 5 of each one of the buildings that are out there. And by bubble, I mean 25 to 26. For the rest of the classes, we think we're going to be in the 22, 23 range, if the enrollments hold the way they are right now.
Okay. I guess that would be my one concern with this would be if we do have enrollment increases like last year over the summer and how we might contend with that. Another question, one of the items we cut last round was the Family and Career Sciences program, and I appreciate these program needs. I guess the question I would ask is relative to the balance we're striking. Some of the programs that were serviced by those teachers are not going to be the same students taking Project Lead the Way classes and so forth. Do we feel like we have the right balance in place today?
Based on the last 2 years of enrollment registrations, we know that there is a serious need in business and tech ed to increase the number of on-campus kids. We don't have a home and careers position anymore in high school. If we did, we would have enough students registering to fill two teaching positions. It's a hard balance for us. We've made a commitment to Project Lead the Way and the Finance Academy. Those are kind of 21st century learning opportunities for kids. I think if we had additional funding, we could make a recommendation to bring back the home and careers teachers. We think at the bare minimum we would have to bring back 2 to the high school to make the offerings that we need for kids. We definitely could fill them. It just didn't fit in this particular hierarchy as we put it together.
Do we still have preferred eligible teachers for all these, some of these?
We have English, we have math, we definitely have music, we have the librarians on the list, so most 10 areas we have preferred eligible. Most 10 areas we have a preferred eligible list.
Thank you, John. And then my last question / comment, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but in years prior and in presentations prior relative to the tax rate, we've talked about, or you've published the series of what we've proposed and then what ultimately was enacted in August. We don't have a crystal ball sitting here, But looking back at years prior, every July, August, when we actually get the assessed valuation from the towns that make up the Clarence District, the rate actually drops. And if my math is correct, if we have a consistent increase like we had last year and the year prior, the tax rate from 1537, while we can't publish anything differently or wouldn't be prudent necessarily, which is a 58-cent increase per thousand, and as the numbers you have on the slide, would be roughly $15.09, or a 2.1% increase in the individual taxpayers' property taxes.
Yeah, I think that's a normal assumption, Mike, in normal years. One of the things that we have to keep in mind is that the Board of Education passed a exemption for veterans. That's going to yield probably 1% of that increased valuation and assessments. I think it's safe to assume that, especially in the town of Clarence, we will be above the 1%, and that will reduce the tax rate. It may not reduce it as much as in prior years, but we certainly expect that it will be lower than the projection we have.
Thank you. I mean, with that said, I support what recommendations you put forward.
Well, I'd have to say I'm pretty concerned about the addition of 11 jobs, 11 positions back. Bear with me as I explain my position here. I do have 4 children currently enrolled in the Clarence schools. My youngest will be there for another 12 years. So I have a vested interest in making sure our schools are good for a long time. And that's my concern. I want the schools to be good now, but I still want them to be there 10 years from now. You know, I think our job as a school board isn't necessarily to rubber stamp the school administration's requests or wants, nor to placate the loudest special interest groups in our community. You know, we have the job as a school board to balance the needs of our school with what, you know, the community will accept as a tax load. And I think the decision criteria, for me at least, is always, is it an absolute necessity or is it a luxury? You know, I don't think it's a virtue for me, being a parent of kids in school. I don't think it's a virtue of me to demand that everybody else pay more for what I want. I think we need to respect, the taxpayers in this community. I think our community, they've demonstrated a willingness to support us, when we're modest and we're careful with the money we spend. I think they will. But one of the reasons, I'm worried about adding these 11 positions is that we're adding positions at a time when the enrollment is decreasing drastically. Now, one of the reasons, Mr. Hicks, you stated for bringing a position back would be one that we wouldn't have to, eliminate in a few years' time. But next year alone, we're losing an enrollment of 120. Now, these are all according to, the figures you gave us, 2 months ago. So they might change slightly. In the next 5 years, your projections show that we'll lose 349 students. Now, at that rate, we'll probably be closing an elementary school, according to what, the study group, based on their recommendations last year. What was it called? Task force. Yes, the task force. So it doesn't make sense to me to be adding positions back when a few years from now we'll be letting positions go. And I think it's, it's going to be it's painful every time we let positions go. Let's not go through that pain. I think the ratios will come right. Let's be patient. In addition, based on your numbers that you gave us last time, Mr. Hicks, you said one position's you budget about $100,000. Is that right, Rick?
In total, that's maybe what a person on the preferred eligibility list would cost with benefits.
So 11 positions, we're talking about $1.1 million in that ballpark that we're adding, to the load on our taxpayers. I know we've heard many times in here that some people think that the taxpayers in this community don't pay their fair share. But they're only looking at half the equation. the rate is not what determines what people pay. In actual fact, you know, Clarence school taxpayers pay on an average like $1,000 more than the average school taxpayer in Williamsville, and we appreciate them. But let's not add, you know, an additional load if we don't need to. The other thing I'm worried about is that, you know, we just went through a couple years ago a pretty painful experience with the budget. And we've heard, you know, over and over that it's the states to blame, and, you know, and certainly, you know, on the GEA, we were affected by that, no doubt about it. I think unfairly, you know, and Clarence gets singled out a little bit on the GEA. You know, it hurt us, no doubt about it. But I think the bigger issue lay in the 10 years before that, in the spending. You know, we had average spending increases of 4.4%. Let's not go down that road again. Let's be careful in how we spend the money, because if we're relying on the state to bail us out every year, it's going to happen again. Now that's my opinion. Maybe other people think otherwise, but I think if we're too dependent on the state and we're relying on them coming through every year, as soon as things get bad again, we're going to be the first ones being cut. And it's going to be a whole painful experience again. You know, my opinion is we've made some of those hard decisions already. Let's stay the course. Let's be careful with our money, and because I think in a few years' time, the state's not going to come through for us, and we'll be in a better position for it. You know, if we look around at our community, you know, our neighbors, let's, you know, add jobs, take jobs away. It seems like crisis management. We're going from one fire to the next to the next. Let's not do that. Let's be careful, and I think long term it'll pay dividends for us. So in my opinion, you know, I can't support the, you know, the budget as is, adding these 11 positions.
Okay, would you address the issues with the enrollment? They are scattered across all of the grades, so that it's not just one grade or one school. So the 120 or 130 decrease per year is not like a whole classroom that's disappearing. It could be.
There's a point in our enrollment projections where elementary enrollments stabilize and actually start to come up a little bit in one of the projections. The task force made the decision that we would not, within the next 5 years, have enrollment declines based on the 2 studies that we gave them that would be significant enough to close an elementary school. It couldn't possibly happen after that, but within that 5-year time frame that we had asked them, it would not.
Plus or minus a year ago, we're going to be close.
It's possible if projections go differently than what they are, or it's possible that the elementary enrollment stabilize and actually start to very small increase, and then our 4 elementaries would be just about perfect in terms of.
But I mean, the data we have, you've given us no, I'm just basing it on the data, the best data we have, and that's what you've given us. And by that, it looks like we're going to be there. If it's 5 years or 6 years or 7 years, we're going to be there, and it's going to be painful. And let's.
Well, I don't think we can project out 5 years. The child hasn't been born yet.
Well,
additionally, Rick, could you give us the average over the last 10 years of what the increase in the levy has been, the spending costs, et cetera? I don't think it's been 4%.
No, the tax rate actually has dropped from about 2007 until now, and certainly getting back to some of those enrollment numbers, the task force, as we went through all of those numbers, we were very mindful to make sure that even though we had more solid numbers for the 5 years out, we were looking at long term, and the predictions for all of them still don't show where we would end up closing a school. This coming year already, our kindergarten enrollment our anticipated enrollment through the kindergarten roundups has vastly exceeded what all those projections were. So I think we're in a good situation for that. And I know, like Mr. Fuchs had mentioned, the tax levy that we had put out has modest growth, and the tax rate, again, has stayed lower than it has been since 2007, I think. One other thing I did want to mention, when we looked at the 5 years for sustainability, what's in the estimate for 15-16 school year are those 11 positions. As we projected it out, we actually were very conservative. I know the chart showed 2 to 3% increase. We actually put a 3% increase in there. And there is a cushion in there built in for retirements. The revenue projection, I know you talk about a state ballot, but we were really only putting a 2% increase in there. We've never had an increase in state aid as low as 2%. So our projections do show, and again, 5 years out, every year, hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenues being higher than projected expenses. So we didn't want to recommend, Dr. Hicks and Dr. Patak and I, when we went through all this, we didn't want to recommend restoration of positions if we weren't very comfortable that in the long term, the sustainability will be no higher than that cap number, and really lower as the revenues do exceed all of the estimates for expenses.
About 5 years ago, we wouldn't have expected to have the budget crisis we did. So my point is, we need to be very conservative. We need to plan for the unplanned. And I think long term, that'll pay dividends for our district, rather than going from crisis to crisis and up and down. Now, that's just my opinion, but, you know, and that's the reason I would, you know, I can't support it.
Okay, and I have one other follow-up. The comment about the Williamsville taxes being lower than ours, the school taxes, is that what you said? So what is the
average school taxpayer in Williamsville
pays how much per thousand?
About $1,000 less.
The question is, how much do they pay per thousand? Because everybody has a different valuation of their house. You can't compare a $500,000 house.
I'm talking about
against
the dollars that are coming out of their wallet.
I realize that.
Not a rate.
But
it's
the
actual
rate is multiplied against the value of your house. So you have to compare a $200,000 house in Williamsville to a $200,000 house in Clarence in order to determine if they in fact pay more taxes.
One of the things that we do look at, the town of Clarence boundary, Transit Road basically, there is quite a few homes that are on the east side, the Clarence side, and they are in the Williamsville School District. And you know, our tax rate, and these are homes that are literally next door to each other, our tax rate of projected $15.37 is well below theirs, is over $20 per thousand.
My only point is we shouldn't pile on the taxpayers of here in Clarence. I think they've, you know, it's been popular to bash them and say they don't pay enough. In my opinion, I think they do.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify the questions and the answers.
I can give you my information later.
Okay.
I totally disagree. But I don't think any of this stuff that's on this 11 positions, I don't think they're wants, they're needs. And the past is the past. We have an opportunity here to help the taxpayer out by having a tax rate at 3.99, so we're helping taxpayers out, and we also help out the school and the kids. When I decided to run for the Board of Ed, I wasn't just looking out for my kid, I was looking out for all the kids in this district. And I really think that's important. There's music kids that got positions, a lot of music was taken away. There's a lot of kids in this district that are struggling with the new standards that need help. And we don't even have full-time librarians. I mean, that's, for a district like ours, to not say we don't have full-time librarians, that's crazy. And I have a unique opportunity because I volunteer 3 times a week in an elementary school with a class size of 27 or 28 kids. And I get to see it firsthand 3 times a week on how some of these kids struggle day in and day out. And the teacher doesn't have the opportunity to stop what they're doing all the time because there's 28 kids in the class learning at different rates at different times. And I mean, we have parent volunteers coming in to help these kids. there needs to be more help in these schools, and there needs to be smaller class sizes. So I am in favor of the 3.99 and the 11 restored positions.
I am in support of having our tax levy be at 3.9%. We made cuts when we were forced. We made cuts where it was possible. Clarence has a long-term history of cost effectiveness and one of the lowest rates in Western New York area. We have asked teachers and administrators to be as creative as possible to fill in gaps and to ensure student needs are met. We have a responsibility to meet the needs of all students, those who are at the top of the class, as well as those who struggle to meet their goals. The GEA has taken funds away from us, your taxes, to balance the budget for New York State. We have an opportunity to cautiously and deliberately restore positions to meet the needs of our students. I believe as a board and the administration listened to those people in the community who felt that the tax cap was too high, even though a few years ago we had to lay across the street and reduce it to get it to the rate that would be acceptable by the community. So we moved from 4.7, which is the tax cap, to 3.9. We also hear those people and the teachers and the students and the families and people who no longer have children in the school district who say it is important to keep the value of and the integrity of the school district that we have and that has been in place for everybody's children. Those that have gone through here, people benefit from it in the value of their home, to restore positions so that we meet the needs of the students, as well as recognize that we had the opportunity to reduce the tax levy from 4.7% to 3.9%. And at this point, I will open it up to public comment. I ask everyone to go to the microphones and to speak to the board, and we won't have any cross-yelling at other people. Address questions, and we will, if we don't have an answer, if Mr. Hicks doesn't have an answer, or Mr. Mancuso, we will get them the information to be posted to the district website. And I ask people to be polite, courteous, and no booing, clapping at the end of the question, and give people an opportunity to ask their questions and without any name calling. Let's be adults. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Fitzgerald, and I'm a senior at Clarence High School. I would like to share with the board how much I value and have benefited from my experiences at Clarence. Clarence schools create high-caliber students who dedicate themselves to their programs and studies. We have been taught that there is always room for improvement and betterment. This kind of district produces students who will attend Ivy Leagues, music conservatories, and participate in Division I athletics. Now, as a senior, my days here at Clarence are numbered. I cannot wait to move on to bigger and better things, but as I leave, I'm concerned that the future students will not have the same opportunities as I did. It is because of academic and extracurricular opportunities specific to Clarence that I can attend the college of my choice on a scholarship and grant. For example, at Clarence, I was able to participate in high-quality music and athletic programs, which allowed me to become, as they call it, a well-rounded student. These programs became my second homes and my family's, as they are to many students. Secondly, I was able to take a variety of AP courses offered at Clarence. These courses not only prepared me for college-level work, but earned me college credit, which will save thousands in tuition. Lastly, and most importantly, there are the teachers here. The teachers who shaped my experience at Clarence. The teachers here are the core of this institution. I'm not just talking about teachers who are experts in their subject, although there is no lack of them here. I'm talking about teachers who love what they teach and love teaching the youth of our community. Our teachers take on many roles beyond just teaching. They are mentors, inspirations, advocates, and confidants. They have saved lives, quite literally. I know from experience that sometimes all that keeps a student from slipping through the cracks is a teacher. When I think of my years at Clarence High School, there are 4 distinct teachers that come to mind who really had an impact on me. But the fact of the matter is, 3 of those 4 have been laid off due to budget cuts. And I know I'm not alone here. Many of our students have been feeling the loss of their favorite teachers. Even though I value my time with these extraordinary teachers, and it may have been cut short, I am still grateful for that. but it really bothers me that some of these underclassmen have been shortchanged over the last few years. I would like the board to consider restoring as many teachers as possible and begin to repair the damage done to our programs by budget cuts. Thank you.
My name is Chris Kausner. I'm a class of '94 graduate. I have 3 kids in the district now. While we were sitting here, I pulled up my own personal tax records for the house that I own in Clarence. So in 2005, I paid, I think, $3,001 in school taxes in 2005. Last year, I paid $2,915. So I don't know how the last 10 years has gone for the rest of you, but everything in my life is more expensive. Healthcare is up. College tuition is up. Gas is up. Groceries are up. My school taxes are lower, not adjusted for inflation. Dollar for dollar, they're lower. If this tax increase goes through, I'll be at almost exactly the same level that I was 10 years ago. That is not a crisis by any stretch. Taxes are not running away out of control. I would guess that you don't have any other taxes in your life that you paid the same dollars 10 years ago that you paid today. Probably none. On the flip side of that is spending out of control? Well, here's the data as I understand it, and I've done some research on this. There are 669 school districts in the state of New York. Does that sound right to those of you that are experts? So of those 669 districts, there are 5 that spent less per student than Clarence. 5. So we're in the bottom 1% of spending per student. I don't know how you could possibly categorize that as a luxury. So here's my question, I guess. We're fortunate enough to live in a district where we have some resources, but we're in the very bottom 1% of what we invest in our kids. Do we have to be all the way at the bottom? Do we have to be dead last in what we invest per student in our children before we stop saying that it's too much money?
Hi, I'm Kathy Wild. I wanted to address the idea of community, that as Clarence, we're a community, and one of the strongest parts of our community is the school system. Mr. Showalter said, it's not fair to ask taxpayers to pay for things I want from my kids in school. And my question is, why not? We're a community. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to support each other. My taxes go to the library. I don't use the library. I have a Nook. I'd rather do it that way. I've lived here for 8 years. I've never called the fire department, but my taxes help the fire department. There are neighborhoods I've never set foot in, but their roads still get plowed and their streetlights are still on, even though it doesn't have any personal benefit to me. Being part of a community means supporting that entire community. And the core of our community and one of the jewels of our community is the schools. I'd also like to say that, you know, I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. We also talk about the taxpayers. We keep hearing the taxpayers. We can't put this burden on the taxpayers. I'd like to remind some members of the board that parents are taxpayers. We are all taxpayers here. And so our voices are just as valid as the taxpayers who don't have children in school. I did a little research. The average age of a person in Clarence, the highest, like, if it's like a bell curve of ages, are people who are in their 20s through their 50s, well, actually 30s through their 50s, which would be parents, okay? They're the most likely to be parents. So a lot of these taxes, the majority of them, are being paid by people who have children in the school. And I think that their needs and their wishes need to be respected. And also, for the life of me, Mr. Showalter, I can't see one of those positions as a luxury. They are necessary. We have to repair some damage that has been done to these schools, to decrease class sizes, to add more enrichment opportunities, to add more electives so we don't have seniors sitting in 2 and 3 study halls a day because there are simply not enough classes to be offered. So I definitely want to support these 11 positions. I only wish we could add more.
My name is Madeline Bedenko, and I'm a member of the Clarence High School's Treble Chorus, Symphonic Band, and Drama Club. In these programs, I have made friendships with my peers that are incredibly strong. Because of these programs, I have a group of friends who I can trust and make memories with. The teachers who supervise these groups are fantastic. Their knowledge and love for what they do is truly inspirational, and the experience I've had is not one that can be replaced by a technological alternative. Their dedication to their students is beyond compare, and every moment working with them is a gift. My younger sister has yet to experience these programs, and I will do whatever I can to ensure that she can make the same incredible memories that I have been lucky enough to make. Being a part of programs as amazing as Treble Chorus, Symphonic Band, and Drama Club is a treasure that I have discovered, and as long as I'm in Clarence, I will strive to make it so that every student can discover it for themselves.
I know that kid, and I just want to say that was really articulate and really well thought out. I thought it was brilliant. My name is Alan Bedenko. I'm here not necessarily on my own behalf. I don't want to take away from what other people have to say. I'm here on behalf of Keep Clarence Schools Great. I have in my hands, you guys didn't know you were going to get gifts today, petitions that have been signed online over the last 2 to 3 days by 653 people. I can't say necessarily that they're taxpayers. I can't say that they're parents or students. They're all of that. They're alumni, they're teachers, they're people who work in the district, who attend the district, who used to attend the district. In some way, every single person who signed this petition, which literally we threw up online a couple of days ago, before the weekend, when everyone was on vacation, and each one of them signed it because Clarence Schools means something to them. And what they signed is a request that the board please reinstate these 11 positions that are being discussed today. As a matter of fact, many of the parents who signed this petition believe that the 11 don't go far enough, that there's more that we can do. I understand that there is a balancing act that the board has to accomplish between taxpayers who are, quite frankly, fatigued by taxes. And I understand also that there are people like these kids and the parents who are in here who are not necessarily fatigued by taxes, but they're fatigued by budget cuts to the school programs. And both of those fatigues, to a certain degree, need to be addressed and need to be handled appropriately. And they need to be handled appropriately by listening to everybody. And that's why we did this petition. We don't want just one side to be heard. We want everybody's side to be heard as well. So Dr. Hicks, if I could. And as far as restoring positions, the emergency is over. The emergency of 2 years ago is over. The state still owes us money based on what the presentation has told us. I think we're $1.8 million short of what we should have gotten. And that's based on past performance of what the state has given our district. And we're $16 million in the hole already. If Albany does what it's supposed to do, and stops balancing its budget on the backs of kids and on the backs of school districts like ours, then we'll be in even better position than what those projections show for revenue. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Grace Donato, and I just came to this school this year. I didn't really prepare anything for this, so I'm kind of improvising, forgive me, but coming here from where I used to go to school has been an absolute whirlwind. I thought that I was going to come here and make no friends and, just have a poor education, because that was what I received. I wasn't getting connection. But coming to Clarence has honestly given me the opportunity to explore myself and learn so much about, just even what I have to offer because of these programs that we are given, because of the teachers that I've had. I have not had a single teacher this year who I haven't established some sort of a real connection with. All of my teachers have gone completely out of their way to make sure that I felt comfortable and that I felt like I was being included in things and that I felt like I knew what I was doing. And when you come to a school your junior year, not knowing what you're getting yourself into, from a class of 70 to a class of 400, that means the world. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jacob Lukowski, and I'm a freshman at Clarence High School. Since I came here from the middle school, I can firmly confirm that every single friend I've made is because of all the programs here, the sports programs and the music programs, etc. And in middle school, I was in a very dark place, and every single teacher that I've had has gone way beyond their way, and I just don't think they should have to do that. I think we should have more teachers to help us. The programs at the school have helped me become accustomed to the new school, and it's preparing me for college and the future.
Hi, my name is Cassidy Reed. I am a senior at Clarence High School. 113 positions, 67 teachers, 9 music teachers, 1/4 of the art department, numerous extracurricular activities and sports, and we want to restore 11 teachers. Why is this debatable? Why is this questioned? I have been a participant in, pretty much almost every single musical ensemble except for chorus because I'm not a fabulous singer. Art, I've participated in 3 different sports at this school. And because of this participation, I believe that this is a school of excellence, that the attitude that you walk away with when you graduate, how mature you become as a person, is something that is valued. When you walk into I'm going to be a music major, I walked into every single one of my auditions. I auditioned at 7 different schools. Every single time I walked into an audition, they knew our school. They knew Clarence. I walked in, and I didn't even play for them yet. And they said, "What school do you go to?" I said, "Oh, Clarence High School." "Oh, you go to Clarence? Wow, they have an awesome music program. You must be very talented." And that reputation is not built up from cutting positions. It's built up from facilitating positions, facilitating students. I auditioned at a school in Pittsburgh. They knew where we were from. I auditioned at a school in Ohio. They heard of us. I auditioned at a school in Michigan. They heard of us. It's not just our area either. It's all over. And it's not just the music department. It's everything. You walk away and you know what you're going to do with your life. You have a plan, you have a thought process, and it's because of the teachers. They guide you along this path, and they're there for you. They're not just, "Oh, you're in my class, okay, I'll hand you a grade." No, they care about you. They care about what's going on in your life. If you have a problem, they'll sit down with you, and they'll talk to you about these things. And the projections in lowering enrollment, it's because we're cutting positions. Why would you come to a school when there aren't enough teachers to facilitate a class of students. When there's 28 kids in an elementary an elementary class, I don't know how a teacher can do that. Like 4 and 5-year-olds, 28 of them, I couldn't handle that. I can't handle 4. Like, I don't know how they're doing that. Last board meeting, the point was brought up of comparing our schools to schools in Florida and Georgia, which I think is an absolutely absurd comment, because why don't you compare our test scores, our SAT scores? There's no comparison. We're extremely higher than they are, so our education should be valued at a higher rate. Okay, so my friends over here that are sitting down and looking at me, I am so proud of all of you for coming out tonight, because you're showing that you're representing your school and that you care. And that's great. I would like all of you to stand if you plan on attending a 2 or a 4-year college or university or trade school. Stand up. Okay, you can sit back down. If you take 1 or more AP or honors class, or plan on taking 1 or more AP or honors class, please stand up. If you are involved in music, art, or any sports or extracurricular activity at this school, please stand up.
And I appreciate what you're trying to demonstrate, but if you could address the comments to the board, we would appreciate it.
Sorry.
You're making them dizzy.
I know. Sorry, guys. Thank you, though. Okay, so the question is, why is this an issue? Why is reinstating 11 positions an issue? This is not a want. It's clearly stated up there on the PowerPoint why we need these positions, not why it's a want, not why it's a luxury. So we shouldn't be discouraging our future. We should be encouraging it, because you're looking at them right now. And we are your future. So that's all I have to say.
So my name is Jacob Kirksick. I live here within the community. I have 4 children in the schools at the moment. One thing that I don't want to discuss is the number of teachers. What I do want to understand is total cost of ownership. So everyone in this room that's an adult has probably bought an automobile. They all understand when you walk into an automobile dealership, whether you're buying a used automobile or a new automobile, they care about one thing. That is, how much are you willing to pay a month? They don't care about the cost. They don't care about the cost of financing. They just want to know, how much can you afford a month? Well, all smart people with their money always recognize what is the true cost of ownership, because that is what matters to them as an individual. So for me personally, living in a great city, living in a great school district, that's important to me. But what I want to understand is the cost of ownership. And in throwing up your numbers, I being a numbers guy, why we're here tonight is the budget review, right? We're not talking about 11 individual positions, we're talking about the total budget. I can see from your revenue projections that over the course of the next 5 years, you're projecting an increase in revenue of 19%. Of that, there's also nearly a 20% increase in a tax levy. One question I have for the board is, how much is the tax base projected to grow in that same 5-year period? Is that something we can answer and have a little discussion, or do you just want all my questions out front and then you'll address them? Okay, so my question then is, what will the tax base grow in the next 5 years?
You know, I have a crystal ball, but if I look at the last few years, it's grown between 1 and 2%.
And is that due to increased valuation, or is that due to growth in the community? Growth of the tax base, or actual growth of new construction, higher valuation? Okay. And you said that number was 1.2%. 1 to 2%. Okay. So our tax levy increase then, if we assume that those on average are 1 to 2%, then our revenue increases that we project on here of a tax levy being larger is not coming from an increased tax base, but coming from a higher taxation. And total cost of ownership, getting back to Mr. Showalter's point, Williamsville people may spend less dollars on tax per per home, you're right. Their houses may be worth less, but that's a choice they made to buy a house worth less. I'm looking at total cost of ownership, so every dollar counts. The next question that I have is on the expenses side, we show that wages are increasing. Once again, in here it says 2 to 3% annually. If you do a 5-year CAGR on these same numbers, that's 3.25% annually. So the number's a little bit misleading. The question is that already including the 11 positions you're talking about? So on these numbers then, the difference from last year's budget to next year's budget, the difference here shows about $3 million. 1.1 million of that you're saying is the new positions? Okay. All right. The next thing I want to address is the actual tax levy. When we talk about a tax cap, when you say 3.5%, that is an additional 3.5% growth on last year's tax levy, correct? Okay. So can we back up about 4 slides to where it shows the cost per home on where it's, I believe, slide 3, in talking about property taxes here. It says on a home, on an average valuation of $300,000. Recently, I just moved into the community about a year and a half ago. I bought a home. It is very hard to find a home in our community in the $200,000 range. Probably closer to the $300,000 range is an average thing. If we're saying that that's 3.9% growth this year is $170, projected forward based on your own revenue projections and expense projections, that $170 this year is going to turn into close to $850 in 5 years. Is that a correct assumption?
So if you take the 3.5% that we put in the tax cap levy increase,
right.
Number one, that's a high projection. And again, we wanted to make sure that we weren't too distorted in any way. But if we use 3.5%, but the 3.5% is levy increase. We know that growth, new construction, is coming in between 1 and 2%. So that for an individual homeowner, that 3.5, and that's what Mr. Freaks mentioned in the beginning, will drop between 1 and 2%.
In the actual, oh, right, but as I talk about, I'm not concerned with the actual rate because I don't care what my finance costs. What I care about is my total cost of ownership. And so that is my, so, and I'm going to go home and do much more in terms of looking into this further after coming to this meeting tonight. But I'm just concerned as a parent, as a taxpayer, I'm the first one to say education has to be a priority. But the question to me is, I want to look at the rest of the budget to find out, am I spending my dollars to get my maximum return on investment? Because when my manager comes to me and says, hey, listen, we have end of quarter money, which I'm saying end of quarter money in your terms is probably the state money, because the state money looks like free money. $1.1 million, that's free money to us this year. It's not my money. It's nobody in this room's money. It is the state gave us that money. Well, what is my money is that $170. What is that money is the $3,000 or $4,000 or $2,700 that any individual pays currently to pay in school taxes. That's money that's important to me because as long as I make sure that we're getting a return on investment, I'm happy to spend. From what I've seen today, the focus seems to be not on the budget, but only on these teaching positions. So is the next year's budget online currently to look at? Right. Right, and that's what I fear gets lost in the public. I feel that those are the things that are very important. Every dollar it should be invested and should be spent wisely. Right, my daughter has done very well in this school. I am extremely pleased with how she's done. But at the same time, if I go to my management team and the company that I'm a part of, and they say they have money, they say, give me a wish list. This to me looks like this is our wish list. Give us what we think we need. I never get my whole wish list. So I just want to make sure that if anybody walks away, you can answer and I'll be done here. But if if in any type of budget proposal, there has to be a point at which you've asked for as much as you possibly can because you know you're not going to get something. And so my hope is that in looking at the budget, we continue to look at these things and not just say, rainbows and unicorns, let's give everybody what they want because it's free money from the state that we can't count on forever. Thank you. Go ahead.
What I would say is that I encourage you to go back and take a look at the progression from January to now. Take a look at all of the slides that were in the budget. All of the videos are online as well. You can take a look at how things progress. You came to a meeting where we're at the final stage.
Right.
So there's two big sources of revenue for the district. One is state aid, and we consider state aid state money that we pay in state taxes as well. And one is local property taxes. For a basis of comparison, we can give you, if you contact Rick or me, we can give you the same costs in other local school districts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll have to deviate a little now, but my first, the young lady that was up here before who spoke so well, I was cracking up. She was in the music program. She had her notes on sheet music. Did you notice that? So I thought that was pretty funny. I wasn't originally coming up here to talk about that, but that gentleman raised some great points. He sounds like he's maybe an accountant or something. Really seemed to have a great handle on the money. And the one phrase that he did use that I actually understood was return on investment. Because I don't want to spend any more money than I have to either, but if I'm going to spend money, I want to get something that is of value. I would rather spend, $200 on something of value than $100 on something that's crap. And I feel that way about our schools too. And I'm just actually holding this because I didn't have anywhere to put it. But there's a few things in here that I wish I had my glasses to see, but I think I'm going to get this straight. So as a return on investment, here we got Clarence is the third out of 432 Western New York districts for excellence, but also for cost effectiveness. That's return on investment. Okay? Also, we're sixth in administrative efficiency. I remember that that was spoken. That's a great job. Just a fantastic job. Chris brought that up earlier. Per pupil spending is second lowest in Erie County and the sixth lowest in the entire state. I realize New York is an expensive state. I lived in New Jersey. I didn't think anything was more expensive than New Jersey, but I managed to find the state that is. And so believe me, I mean, it's outrageous, but that's life. The school tax rate is the second lowest in Western New York. Again, I understand dollars versus rate. I understand it's a wealthy community, but there's a lot of people in here in town who are unfortunately not able to spend money like a lot of the rest of us do. But what a fantastic return on investment we are getting for this money. I have not heard too many people come up with any great suggestions about how to save money. I've heard them not want to spend money, but I haven't heard any good suggestions about how to save money. I was very interested in Mr. Lottie with his distance learning. That's a great idea. I was happy to know that the board had looked at it and will probably look at it in the future. I do know I actually do distance learning. I'm a professional instructor, a corporate instructor, do a lot of my work over the internet. It's very, very, very difficult for people to do distance learning. I mean, it's going to come in because it's so cost effective, but it is very hard. And I can imagine it's even harder for children. It's certainly something to look into, as is technology. Although if you ever do anything with technology, please make sure that you have a very healthy part of your budget to teach the teachers how to use the technology. Because if they can't, it's a complete waste of your money. Okay? But none of that was what I was actually coming up here to talk about. I actually had a question from Mr. Showalter. I think I got this right because I was listening to what you're saying. You mentioned that there were special interest groups in the town of Clarence that were looking to have an increase in the taxes. What special interest groups are you talking about?
I don't know all the names out there.
Well, I don't mean a person. I mean, special interest groups. Are you referring to like teachers or? Right. Okay, so. Okay, because a special interest group, then you should be a little bit more careful with your terms, because there is no special interest group looking to raise money. There's no secret cabal here looking to raise our taxes. There's just a bunch of people who are concerned about education who want to raise the taxes. And you might think that that's nitpicking, but I actually think it's a very serious misstatement that you just made there, because it suggests something that should not be suggested, and it's not true. Well, it's not an opinion, it's a fact, and you even admitted it was a fact. There isn't a special interest group that you know of, right? That's not an opinion, that's a fact. You've seen some emails from special interest groups? You mean like Keep Current Schools Great? That's not a special interest group. Well, a special interest group would be something that, you know, has someone who is actually paid, for example, to do these things, who has an agenda behind the scenes. Keep Current Schools Great is parents mainly. So if you want to say it's a special interest group because they want to do something, okay, fine. But, okay, that's fine. I'll sit down. Thanks a lot.
My name is Justin Kloss, and as a Clarence alumnus, I actually would like to address a few comments that I heard earlier. I believe the gentleman who was in line before me addressed the actual financials and said that we were only looking at the teaching positions that are being added. Well, I'd like to point out that $57 for $100,000 and $200,000, well, that's less than you pay for a year of Netflix. And if you want to feed your family, maybe have some pizza and soda, well, you're at $300,000 already. So it is absurd to talk about how unreasonable this increase is. Absurd. Netflix, and we're talking about the education, my education. Now, I'd like to echo the comments of this young woman over here, because they were so important, the teaching positions that were cut in my own educational development. And to think that the students who live in this district, in this town now, won't have those is just ridiculous. I graduated here, went off to school, and loved this community so much that I came back. And to answer that gentleman's first question, the tax base will go up by 1.
Yeah, I'll keep my comments very brief, okay, because I am Michael Rockwell, I'm a taxpayer. I actually have a big house, so I pay a lot of money in taxes, and I'm very happy to do that. But I'm very happy to see that we're adding 11 positions back, and I'm extremely happy to see that we're adding the music educator back. I don't know if you heard the good news, but we have sold out Klein Hands Music Hall in less than a month, and it has... And this is based upon the strength of the Clarence music program, the alumni. In fact, I've been getting emails today from people who are saying, can I get them from the general, we can't sell tickets to the general public because we've sold out the entire Klein Hands music program by just word of mouth. So I just wanted to deliver that and say that, you know, the music program's doing, you know, will do much better with the additional educator. The other thing I wanted to mention, because I do have a degree in business, a lot of people talk about return on investment, but when you look at the valuation of a company, I'll say the community, you look at assets minus expenses and liabilities, and it comes up with the price of a company. And the company's always higher because there's this big thing called goodwill. We have a tremendous amount of goodwill here in Clarence. There's a lot of pride, as you can hear from these students and community members, of the fact that we live in Clarence and we have a very strong school system. I actually have a son who graduated last year. He's thriving in college because of the education, the preparation that he got here in Clarence. And I've worked with many students in Clarence and Western New York, and I can tell you that the students here in Clarence are absolutely well prepared for not only just college, but for life in general. We see them out in businesses, we see them out doing volunteer work, we see them, I see them everywhere. I mean, I am very proud of the students that we produce here in Clarence. So I think that the school system is doing a great job preparing these students for life. I wish we could do more. I'd be willing to pay a lot more, actually, to give them the opportunity to do well in life, because it is an investment that is just a tremendous amount of, when you talk about return on investment, investing in students gets a tremendous return. I want a doctor that's well-educated and well-trained, because I'm getting old, and when I get sick, you know, I want a good quality doctor, and hopefully came from the Clarence School. So anyway, I'm going on and on, but I wanted to say I'm very proud of what you've been doing and what you are doing, and very glad to see that we are restoring positions.
Thank you. My name is Katrina Webster, and I am a Clarence graduate, and I moved back to Clarence because of the schools, because I wanted my children to have the same education. And I wanted to start out by thanking Mr. Hicks, because in these past years, through all this craziness that we've been through, this is the most informed we have ever been. The slides are so clearly presented, and we've learned, most of us, the difference between the tax levy and the tax rate, which has been a great thing for us to learn the difference of. And so, you know, we're very well informed, and when I look at those 11 positions, because I guess, you know, Mr. Showalter, I could say that I am part of a special interest group. I am part of the Keep Clarence Schools Great, and very proudly so, because I want to keep Clarence Schools great. When I look at that list of 11 teachers that we're hoping to restore, that is not my wish list. That's not my rainbows and ponies. That's my, you know, that's the bare minimum of what we can increase, the bare minimum of what we can give back. So I guess what I would like to say is that I appreciate the board members who are going to vote for those 11 positions. Please keep in mind that as a Clarence taxpayer, why a lot of us are here are for the schools, for the value that we get from them, because we are amongst the lowest taxes in the area, and because of the value that our children get at those schools. And I know that it's a balance. I think the board's done an excellent job. I would love to see that more than 11 positions. So if you're talking about, are we getting our rainbows and unicorns? No, absolutely not. We are just getting the bare minimum with those 11 positions. Thank you.
I'm a parent of 2 high schoolers, and I have to tell you, I was a little giddy when the list was put out that we were going to be hiring teachers. One of the concerns I had, or questions or comments, I should say, was Mr. Latte, you had mentioned about, you know, 8, maybe hiring 8 and using the rest for technology. But I'm looking at this list and I'm wondering, okay, well, what ones wouldn't you use? What ones don't we need? We need every one of them. I mean, special ed, can't do that on you know, video feed. The 2 ELA and the 2 math, those teachers are needed to just help these kids try and combat, and the teachers that are here to support them, try and figure out what's been going on with all the massive changes happening with this Common Core. That is literally the plane being built as it's flown. And these kids, the kids, my kids, these kids are the ones that are dealing with it, but at the same time, it's going to affect them getting into the colleges that they want to get into. So all of the extracurriculars, the sports, everything else is going to help bolster them to do better. So you want to talk about return on investments? My first thought was, look at them. Look at what these kids are getting and what they're able to do when they step out of here. But also, if we want to just look at simple numbers, I've lived in this community for about, I want to say, 14 years. My taxes from when we moved in to where we are now have maybe gone up total $900 to $1,000. My home value has increased about $90,000. So let's talk about, you know, return on investment. That's huge. You are absolutely correct. The gentleman over here who said you can't find a home for $200,000, it's very difficult. You know why? There's value in this community, and it's because of this school district. People want to be here, so it's going to cost more to get in here. And you know what? No amount of technology can replace a teacher. Not one. So if we feel, and it is a good idea to start looking at technology and expanding, maybe we go to the cap. But you don't take technology over a body in a classroom who are feeding into these kids, not just facts and figures, but a love for what they're doing and figuring out where they want to go and what they want to do when they step out of this building. And it's huge. This is a huge crossroads that they're figuring out and going to right now. And it's a little humbling to realize as a parent how little voice you have in your kids as they get older and the voices that are speaking into them. And I am so thankful that my kids are in this school with these teachers.
I'd just like to address it was a comment directed toward me. In terms of some of the instructional technology that I've talked to people about, I don't have specifics of which classes maybe, where we have bigger waiting lists, but some of the advantages to the instructional technology as I've understand it, instead of students being in a class of 30 students and maybe one of the children answers a question, every one of the students who learns in this format has to answer all of the questions that are provided. So I'm looking at there's some potential advantages. The teachers who teach some of these distance learning courses, they're some of the best teachers we have in the nation. And then the additional multimedia and other things that can enhance. I'm not saying that we can replace teachers. The students would need guidance. They would need help. They would need a resource to get help that they needed. I'm not saying that we can replace all of the teachers, but I'm saying that we may be able to provide enrichment and opportunities to students where they, even restoring these 11 positions, they may not have them. We may be able to help more of our students this way. And some of the programs that I'm familiar with, students enjoy learning that way. They're used to technology maybe differently than generations past, and they do have to answer all of the questions. They do have to think more about each of the things that's presented. So I'm not suggesting we replace teachers. I'm suggesting we really take a hard look at it as a way to enhance the educational opportunities.
First of all, Mr. Hicks, great presentation as usual. My name is Jeffrey Showalter, Clarence resident and a graduate of Clarence. And it's great to be here next to my old coach. It's great, good to see familiar faces. I have 5 kids, 4 in the school and 1 on the way. Watch out, teachers, because he's a bit of a tear. But I think our discussion tonight, has been helpful. Whether we're on one side or the other. I think by not having a rubber stamp here on the board, I think it helped us to communicate and talk about some of these points, and I think that together makes us a stronger community. In essence, I think also that's one of the reasons why we have such a great school for a great values, because we're involved, the parents, the teachers. We, the parents, give our kids to you, our most prized possession. Every day they go off to school, and I was in the other week and to my daughter's elementary school and read a book at her on her birthday, and it was fantastic. And we're a community, and we all affect each other. So when we get here, it's not, we're not us, us versus you, and we're trying to find the common ground and trying to get together, and talking about sustainability and as well as programs we need. I think it's all a balance. And I just want to say, I think tonight's been productive. I think we've talked about what we can do as a community to both look long-term, and in doing so, we teach our kids the importance of looking long-term, not just gratifying the here and the now. And I think as a school district, we do that pretty well, and I'm grateful for that. And I see this as a productive meeting, and it is my brother, the board member, but I'm grateful that he's able to bring these issues up, and it's not just a rubber stamp, but we can have a meaningful conversation. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Andrews, class of 1991. Lived in Clarence my entire life. I didn't plan on coming here and speaking tonight. I just came here to be that guy and embarrass my son and take pictures of him. But, you know, you've been talking about a lot of numbers tonight. Many of you may know I'm the Rick Mancuso of a school in Niagara County. And I don't want you to lose sight of you are the school that everybody wants to be. You have what everybody wants. I jotted some notes down here so I wouldn't forget. You have an educational program that is unrivaled in this state, and you're providing it at one of the lowest costs. These are the type of students that we want at our school. We spend more time talking about how we can be you at our district. Not only how can we be you, but how can we beat you. I challenge you to come to the court this Saturday and watch Tyler and Mitchell and Georgia and Julia just obliterate some poor team from another part of the state. I mean, it's just short of weeping that goes on. You have the teachers we want. We were fortunate enough to hire one of your excise teachers. 9 years she taught here. She's an absolute superstar. These positions don't come lightly. We had over 900 applicants. She was here, and everybody else was here. It wasn't even close. Your financial practices are what we try and emulate. Your forecasting. You as a board and administration and Dr. Hicks guiding this district through some of the worst financial times, you should be commended that you're in this position now to have a type of meeting where you're talking about adding back, not wants, Mr. Showalter, needs. I sit there and listen to my wife talk about how when she volunteers in these class, these kids struggle. 27, 28 kids in the class. I can barely handle my own 2 at home. These are not wants. These are not administrative wants. This isn't just some wish list. These are things that are needed here at this school. Whether you like it or not, it's your job to put forth the educational program to this district and live within the rules and framework that's provided to you by New York State. Sure, you would love to be able to, who wouldn't love to have, I would love to come to my taxpayers in my district and say, you're paying less than you were 10 years ago. They'd carry me around on their shoulders. It doesn't happen very often. So I don't want you to lose sight, and of all the numbers that you've talked about tonight, I don't want you to lose sight of what you have and what you are, and how many people would trade places with you and this people and these students in a heartbeat. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Stock, and I'm currently in 8th grade at the middle school. 2 quick points that I want to go back to is the positions, the teaching positions. I am in the 8th grade orchestra, and my older sister, who is a sophomore here, is in the symphonic orchestra, and she is also in guitar club. And we need the music teacher. We need all of the teachers to come back. I saw one of my favorite teachers go, who was in the 8th grade art teacher position at the middle school, and I didn't get the chance to have her as a teacher. She was a leader of the art club my 6th grade year, and I didn't get to have her as a teacher, and she was one of the best art teachers that we had. And also, going back to the point of distance learning with the digital teaching, I don't think we could do nearly as well with any kind of distance learning, because the connections we have with our teachers are so great and so important to us. I personally have a very good connection with my Latin teacher and also my social studies teacher. And I'm currently looking at going to a college and becoming a Latin teacher because of the amazing experience with the foreign language that I've had with my teacher at the middle school.
My name is Marge Colangelo. I just want to start out with, I'm a big supporter of education. I think education is very important. I am certainly not against teachers. A lot of my relatives and friends are teachers and retired teachers. But there was something you said at the last meeting that concerned me. You said, you brought up on the screen, and I don't know that I got it all, and I might be wrong on it. You said that the STAR program was going to change significantly, you think. You don't know what it's going to change to. And the chart you put up there, it looked like I personally probably wouldn't get anything anymore. And I just want to bring up a point to everybody. We've been dealing with the STAR program since 1997, and it certainly has helped everybody with their school taxes. I know for a fact that my tax, let's just say the STAR program ended this year, my tax would go up over $1,000. So that's something we all have to think about. We're kind of falsely seeing low school taxes. I mean, yes, in comparison to others, they have the STAR too. But when that happens, that's going to be a big shock to everybody. And even people like with 400 or 500, everybody's getting that off on your taxes. There is a real tax and the tax we pay. And I mean, that's going to be a big surprise, and I think we ought to be thinking about that.
Yeah, thanks for that question. That didn't make it through the final budget. It was called the Education Tax Credit, and it didn't make it. So STAR's alive and well.
For this year or for?
The foreseeable future.
Okay.
Well, until the next budget cycle.
Okay. Okay. Because that concerned me a lot when I saw that. Okay. But again, all right. The other thing is I just want to point out, too, that those rebates we get, it's just for the current year. So the next year you pay the taxes. So I don't think we should look at that as coming off. I mean, it does for 1 year. But that's all. And after that, it's on our taxes forever.
Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for their comments and questions. And we will move on to the finance part of our agenda. And the roof bid awards, Mr. Mancuso.
We did receive approval for all of the roof projects. We bid them out, and S&L Roofing came in as low bidder for both parts, the Ledgeview, which is half of the roof work, and the other 4 sites, which is another half. The estimates that the architect and engineers put on the roof portion of the project, these bids were just below those estimates, so we're very happy the way they came in. S&L Roofing has done a lot of projects in the area, all through New York State, actually. Many of them are municipal projects like ours, and they've been vetted by the architects and engineering, so I'd like to recommend approval of the roof bids. Good.
So for contract 100, it had 2 alternate bid components. Is it not working?
Yes,
No.
a lot of times what we do is the architects are very, very conservative. So anything that they can pull out, they pull out and run as alternates.
Okay.
And this way that if bids are higher than anticipated, we can not take those alternates. Now, not taking those alternates doesn't mean some work doesn't have to be done, but we could postpone some of that work. It would be done cheaper, if it's done now with the entire roof work.
Okay.
So it does make sense. Usually, alternates will not get accepted as we move further on into the project. This is the very first stage of a $33 million project, so unless those alternates were very high or the bids were very high, we wanted to accept them.
Okay, so they're kind of, that's part of the scope of the work
Yes.
as it's being, okay, that's what I want to know. Thank you.
I actually have a question on the completion date scheduled for the projects.
Mhm. So actually each portion of it has different completion dates. For this roof work, we're going to have them stage in June, start actual construction June 29th when the buildings can be vacated, and the last week in August is going to be the completion date for all of that. Now, typically, what I've seen is some prima facie kind of stuff being done at the end for roof work. But other than that, the vast majority of it all for this portion will be done by the end of August.
Now, has this contractor done work in our district before?
No, he hasn't worked for us.
Okay.
But the architects and the engineers who work for us, who have vetted them, are very comfortable that he's done a lot of work that they know of. Also, our superintendent of buildings and grounds used to work for Turner Construction Management, and he is familiar with them. He's worked with them.
Okay. Are there any liquidated damages if they don't complete on time?
Well, number one, there's a bond. So
Okay.
there's completion bond for each of these projects and each of these phases. So we've got that bond. Completion on time for roof work sometimes is going to be, it's an ongoing thing. What we do is we have inspectors there every week. We have the superintendent of buildings and grounds, and then for the subsequent phases, we will have the clerk of the works. As you know, some of that work is going to be contingent on weather. What we've done with the schedule is we've built enough time in anticipating just a normal summer weather, but we feel it's sufficient enough time with the two phases of it. And S&L Roofing certainly has the manpower that was part of the vetting process.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, then we need a motion to approve the roof bid awards. Those in favor? Okay. Dr. Patak.
Thank you, Mrs. Kloss. Before you have two items. The first is notification of tenure appointments. There is no board action required this evening. This is simply for review. We will present these names again to you at the May 11th Board of Education meeting for approval. The tenure dates range from July 1st through September 1st. And there are 2 teachers and 2 administrators. In addition to that, we have a number of individuals that are being recommended for the substitute teacher list.
Any questions? Okay, motion to approve P1 and P2. Well, we're approved the notification of the tenure appointments. They're not approved until the next meeting. Right. Second? Okay, those in favor? Okay.
The next item are the non-instructional personnel. We have resignations. We have 4 resignations total. 3 are for purposes of retirement, totaling a total of 57 years of service to the Clarence schools. We have a request for leave of absence. We have various appointments, including bus drivers, teacher aide, clerk typist, and a change in a custodial appointment. In addition, we have appointments, additions and deletion to the substitute support staff list.
Any questions? Concerns? Okay. A motion to approve P3 through P6. Those in favor? Okay. The special needs and student activities?
This is really just a couple of weeks of special ed meetings. We're going to have another agenda for you next week based on, I think we are. Are we, Carolyn? I think we will. 23 committee on special ed kids and 10 committee on preschool special ed kids, and nothing out of the ordinary for this month.
Okay. Then approval for the special ed and preschool special ed. Those in favor? Okay. No board development or policies. Before you is a schedule of meetings. Our next meeting is next Monday night. We will have a special meeting for the budget adoption. It'll be in the Clarence High School Lecture Hall at 7 p.m. Also before you are upcoming events, which they'll get longer and longer before the end of June. We are now at the point for our final public comment session. If anybody has the stamina. Anyone? Feel free to come up to the... Nope. Okay. Then... There are 2 board seats that are up for election in May. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. If you'd like to ask, have any at this, okay. And the due date is April 20th, right? So people have until April 20th to turn them in. Okay. Okay, then we need a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purposes of discussion matters related to the discipline of a particular employee. Second? Okay. All those in favor? Okay. Thank you and have a good evening.